Right, here we go. Happy weekend, everyone. Happy Sunday. Sunday, yeah. It's already a Sunday. Monday tomorrow. Right. Hey, everyone. How are you? How's everyone doing? Hope everyone is okay. Feeling good and is ready for another week. So here we go. Third week, third session. Sorry, I wasn't able to go live yesterday because of some things that I need to um, cover and stuff and need to do. But pretty much, um, here we are. We're gonna be talking about continuation to the Excel formulas from last week and a couple of Excel pivot and Excel charts this week. The session might take a little bit long, but depending on what I call this, depending on the time, I may or may not include the rest and may continue it next week. But I will, as much as possible, include everything in this session. So in this week, we will be talking about splitting address with formulas, Excel count functions, rounding numbers in Excel, statistical functions, Excel charts basics, pivot tables, and pivot charts. So pretty exciting topic this week. So a little complicated stuff now. Anyways, so here we go. So same as usual, I'm gonna share my entire screen. So forgive me if it looks a little bit noob of me for not doing it full screen, but yeah, I'll share my entire screen so that you guys can see what I'm doing, where did I go, or which part of Excel did I go to. So our objective for this week is by the end of this course, we'll be able to understand the basic formulas of Excel, including text formulas, Excel number formulas, statistical functions, understand how to set up an Excel pivot table, work with Excel graphs and charts. So yeah, pretty exciting topic for this week. So let's start with splitting address and with formulas. So what is that? So if you can remember last week, we've talked about what do you call this? We've talked about the text functions, including some VLOOKUPs. And if you can remember, I've missed out left, right, mid, find, len, and substitute formulas in that discussion. So I'll be talking about that this week. So um, if you have Google with you, you can Google these items yourself. But I'll be talking about this as we go along. So um, we'll start with splitting address with formulas with full address. So what you have here, so our goal in this topic is, if you can see this one, these are all addresses. So our goal is to get the street address, the city, the zip code, and yeah, separated in each column. So the addresses are name. I mean, in this table are name with full address in column B. So these ones. So data isn't always consistent, but in this example, there are some characters that will help us split the data. So, for example, after the street address, there's a hyphen with a space character before it and after it here. At the end of the city name, there's a comma and space character. So some of the street and addresses also contain a comma. And then there's also, the state is a two-letter code in uppercase with a space character before and after it. So these characters will help us. What do you call this? Will help us with our exercise. So we'll start with the street address formula. So in the full address cell, the one that you have here, The street address ends with a dash. So here is one formula that returns a street address. It uses the left function to return text from the left side of a cell, and find to calculate the number of characters um, in that cell. So so this is their formula. So what is a left and what is a find? If you can remember, when you type a formula in Excel, when you start it with a dash and you start typing the formula, you'll see the definition here. So left returns the specified number of characters from the start of the text string. And find returns the starting position of one text string with another text string with another text string. So find is case sensitive. So there's find, there's also search. So find formula is case sensitive. All right. So our target value or our goal is to separate these addresses into street address, city, state, and zip code. Right? This is gonna be using formula. It's pretty messy. The view that you are seeing right now is pretty messy. That's because I have my grid lines on, so I will turn that off. All right. So this is our target value. Have street, city, state, and zip code. All right. Now, if we go back, so to get our street address, this is our formula. If you see a full address here, that is because these column C, is named as full address, or this one's here is a table, and full address specifies to this one, these column. Right, so this is your full address. So the formula can be used the reference can be used as a cell instead of using a name. But in this example, we'll be using name. So in this formula, we could use B4 as a full address, but instead we use full address, or meaning the entire column. Right. So getting the street address formula. So our goal to come up with that, to get the street address, this one. So the street address ends with a dash. So we need to use find or search to get the position of that string. So our formula, this one, equals left and then full address here, and then find and then dash. So meaning what it will do is it will try to find where the dash is. In this case, here, this one. This is the dash. Now, because your left formula, if we'll type that in, your left formula, the attributes you need to look is your first logic is text, meaning where your cell or where your data is located, and then comma, and then your number of characters. If you have this two data, it will return a value that you need. In this case, street address. Now, because dash is in the 27th, is the 27th character, then our value is now equals left where your full address here is, which is this one, and then the number of characters is 27. Now, doing that will give you these characters, or everything that is before the dash. So left means counting all the characters from the left. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 27 until where your dash is, because your dash is your 27. Right. Now, because your formula is here, it will then give you your value of street address, which is that. Hoping that's a little clearer, but if you get questions, just let me know. All right, so that's it for street address formula. Next is your city formula. So what is your formula to get your city out of these address or these characters? So your formula is equals mid and then where your address is located, and then len, and then fine, sorry, plus 4, and then fine, and then substitute. A little long, but I will let you understand why that one is, why we're using mid, we're using substitute, we're using find. All right. So it uses mid function, which returns text based on a starting position and the number of characters. So your mid formula, what does that mean? Right. So your mid returns the characters from the middle of a text string given a starting position and length here. So your text is your data, which is this one. Your start num is your start num is here. You are trying to find where the comma is. This is your start num. That's including the length, and then the number of characters. Sorry, let me go back. Um, so your start num is where you start looking for your data. In this case, here you have your len and then your address plus 4. So why we're using len? And then why we are using len? Because len formula, oops, let me go back. Len formula returns the number of characters in a string. For example, you have your say January here, your month of January. If you'd like to know how many characters is in that cell, you can type in len. There. Is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. 7 characters. So if you'd like to know how many characters are in a specific cell, then you can use len. Right. So going back, getting your city formula. Getting your city name, which is Louisville in this example. This is gonna be the formula you'll be using. All right. So if you can remember before, we use text to column, right? But in this case, we're using formula to separate the addresses that we have. I have, if you're wondering how you can get a copy of these formulas, well, yeah, these formulas, the data that I use, I have it in the description. You can get it from there. You can download it from there. All right, next. We have your state formula. So you're getting your state. So in the full address cell, the state is after the city and is 2 characters. Here, so if you look at this one, your address is this. That's your street. Your city is Louisville. And then your state is KY, which is Kentucky. All right. So in our formula to get the state, we need to use mid and then your data, and then your start location to start looking for the state is here, this formula. So fine, and then the city, and then the full address plus the length of the characters in the city column. So the length of the characters in the city column here. So it will count that plus 2, and that is your that is where it starts looking for your what do you call this, your state. So this part, and then the number 2 here returns the number of characters that you want to get from your data, in this case KY, because you'll only need a two character data in your state column. So using that formula here, it will then give you KY as your state. All right. Next, your zip code. So if in this street, in this data here, your formula in getting the zip code is this. So in the full address cell, the zip code is at the right side after the state. So the zip code is always 5 or 9 digits long. So here is the formula, right? So this returns the zip code. So it uses the mid function, which returns text based on a starting position and a number of characters. Right, so your starting position, this one, and then 3 is added to the number. This is to adjust the letter, state code, and the space. So this formula here. I know it's a little confusing, but you'll get the hang of it once you start playing with the data yourself. So again, as what I've said, you can download this. This is in the description. You can download this sample, and then you can play with the formulas that you're seeing here. So again, our goal is from this view, we'd like to separate the street, the city, the state, and the zip code using the formulas that we have. All right.
Wow.
All right. So these are your these are all the formulas that I use in this example. And if you'd like to know the solution to get this result, it's in here, and again, it's in the file. So here, the formula is here, formulas here, formulas here for the state, and the formula is here for the zip code. All right. Next, Excel count function. So what is that for, or what are these formulas? So Excel count functions count the cells with well, depending on the functions that you like to use. So there are different ways to there are different count functions. We'll start with count formula. So what does this count do? So the count function will count cells that contain numbers. So meaning in this example that you have here, it will count 50, 5.5, and 10, right? So the arguments can be cell references or actual data that you enter in that cell. So the following count function example uses one argument. So from A1 in here to A5. So what you do, as an example, to get the count, is enter the sample data in your worksheet. This one. And again, if you'd like to do it yourself, I have it in the download, in the description. So in this case, this is your count. So this is the formula. So enter the sample data in your worksheet in cell A7 here. This is A7, that one. That is where we'd like our data to go. So input your formula, which is count A1 to A5. Enter the press the enter key to complete the formula, and then the result will be 3. 3 is the number of cells that contain numbers. Why? Because this one is blank. So it's blank. No characters whatsoever in that field. So we're only counting this, and that will give us 3 when you are using the count formula. All right. Next, we have count A. So what's the difference with count A and count? So count A function will count cells that are not empty. So meaning, right? So here, right? It will count cells that are not empty. So this is the formula, count A, pretty much the same. Count A and then your range. And if you can remember before, when doing a reference, instead of A1 colon A5, you can also use equals count and then press control, click your cells. You can do it that way as well. All right. But in this case, we'll be using a range, which is A1 to A5 here. So, um, same thing. What you do is enter the sample data in your worksheet. This is your worksheet, and you can download it again. So these are the data. Um, in cell A7, that's where you input your formula. So the result will be 4. That's the number of cells that contain data. Right? Why is it 4 instead of 3? That's because this formula is looking for cells that are not blank. But this one is blank. All right. Why is it still counting as 4? So here, see note on blank cells. So the note on blank cells before we continue here. So both count A and count blank will count cells with formulas that look empty. So if the formula result is a string, meaning if you can remember using code, will consider whatever data that's inside it as a non-empty string. So that's why it's counting it. So both count A and count blank will also count cells which had formulas that return an empty string, but then were converted to values. So by copying and pasting as values, that's when you get results for those formula. Right? Okay, now let's go back. All right. So that's it for count A. Count A counts everything that is not blank. Then you have your count blank function. So your count blank will count cells that are empty. Funny, right? So you have everything in there. In this case, count blank will give you this. That's 1, right? Because it doesn't have, it doesn't have any uh, value in that cell. Right. Next. So you have your count if. So we're starting to be in the juicy stuff here. Right. Your count if. So in Excel, count cells that meet a specific criteria. If you can remember, we have our formula before, which is if. So equals if, and then we have a logic, right? That still applies to this one. It's just that it's now a combined function which includes counting everything that is logical. So count if in this example that we have, we are counting everything in column A that is equal to pen, right? So in our example here, it will give us 4. Why? Because we have this, this, and this as equal to pen. Now you have binder, you have binder, you have pencil in there. You can also instead of using a code, you can have your own list in here. So for example, binder and then pencil. And then in here we will count how many are binder, right? In this case, comma. Instead of typing binder, right? You can instead use that, meaning you can click that. So you are trying to count everything in here. So A2 to A10, that is equal to G18, which is G18 is binder. So ideally, our result should give us 1, 2, 3, right? Let's see if it gives us 3. It does. If you copy the formula, You have two pencils in there. All right. That's it for count if. Amazing, right? All right. So, next you have your counting everything that is greater than or equal to. So you have that function as well. So, um, this is your formula. Count if, and then B1 to B10, and then here. Very important, you include your greater than or equal to, or whatever your operator is, um, inside the code, right? So here, so meaning this formula that we're doing should give us the count of everything in B2, oh sorry, B1 to B10 that is greater than 10. So 15, 12. Oh yeah, greater than or equal to 10. So 15, 12, 10, and 11. All right. So that should give us a count of 4. Let's see here. All right. So why 4? Because again, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. If you change this to everything that is greater than 10, it will only give us 3 because, of course, this is not greater than 10. This is equal to 10. All right. So, there are also instances that you can use. If you can remember earlier, we have this right, and we use reference. Instead of placing an exact value, which is this one, 10, you can also use reference. Right. So in our example, all right, you can use this formula here, meaning counting everything from B1 to B10 that is greater than or equal to whatever is in B12. All right. So you can also use reference. Very important when using greater than or equal to on count if, you use these ones. You put it everything inside that. I mean the operator greater than or equal to. All right. Next, you have your count ifs. So this is only applicable for Excels that are oops, that means in. All right. So Excel versions 2007 and later. So if you have Excel 2003, you won't have count ifs. You have your sum product for that. But in this case, Excel is making our lives easier by using count ifs. So what does it do? Um, count ifs function to count rows that meet two or more criteria. For example, we are trying to look for the grid lines. Um, the count in this table, the count of pen and the value of 10. So meaning the item is pen and then the value is 10. I mean, sorry, greater than or equal to 10, right? So let's see. This one is a pen. Is it greater than or equal to 10? No. This one is a pen. Not greater than or equal to 10. This one is, that's 1. And this one is, that's 2. That's why it's giving us 10. Let's try to change this to pencil. It's only 1 because this one is the pencil. This one is not greater than or equal to 10. So you have your count ifs. Your count ifs formula starts with your criteria range. So that is where what do you call this? Your first scenario, and of that first scenario, your first logic, and in that logic, this if you hit comma, what is your criteria for that logic here? So we're trying to look for in A2 to A10, you are trying to look for pencil. In B2 to B10, you're trying to look for everything that is greater than or equal to what is in E3, which is 10. So that is your count ifs. So this is really this is applicable, especially when you do multiple criteria when trying to look for something. Next, we have your rounding in Excel. So what does rounding mean? Rounding means I'm pretty sure you've worked with a lot of numbers, and in doing numbers, you would want it to be as clean as possible, right? So, for example,
Wow.
when you have 1.54, you'd like to round that to give you a 2, right? So, there are different ways in rounding. First is rounding with formatting, right? So, with formatting, a minute. All right. So, with formatting, a number can appear rounded in the worksheet, but the cell value is not affected. So, in the screenshot below, that's what I said. The numbers may have been, you may see it as a 2, but the actual number of that, or the actual value of that, is still 1.54. All right. So if you will give the actual result, let's go to Excel. Let's close count because we're done with that. Let's also close split because we're done with that. All right. So in this case, the one that you have here, 2 is 1.54, right? So it may look like a 2, but your actual value in that is still 1.54. So yes, you may have rounded it, but then again, the value is still 1.54. If you'd like to see the actual number,
Wow.
just use these buttons here. May expand that, and then you may decrease the decimal. So this is increase, this is decrease decimal, right? So same thing with sandwich and your total here. So if you'd like to increase your total, so if you're going to add this to, supposedly it's a 5, right? If you look at it, yes, it's a 5, right? But the actual result is a 4. Why? Because this is actually 1.54 plus 2.54, right? So it's actually just 4.08. That's why it's instead of, I mean, when you total this two, it's not a 5 but it's only a 4 because of your decimal. All right, next, surrounding with custom number format, right? So the in summary report with very large numbers, so when you are playing with numbers, precision to decimal places is probably not required. For example, instead of on thousands, you can just type k, um, yeah, 1001 decimal. You can do it this way. So to round large numbers and make them easier to read, you can use custom number formats. So to round to the left of the decimal point. So for example, again, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.78 in one of the following formats here, um, to shortcut this, so it's 123,000, right? So instead of 123 comma 456.78, then you use 123k. How to do that is this, right? Now, how to do, sorry, not that, but you can use that, you can have that look, but how to do that, what you do is here. So to apply a custom format, so under ribbon's home tab, Where is that? Let's go to our Excel. Here. So, on the Ribbons Home tab, click the dialog launcher at the bottom right of the number group. In here. Here. So this one. So this is your ribbon. If you can remember on our Excel basics discussion. So this is your ribbon. Under number, you click this, expand that. You'll see this. Once you see this screen, so on the number tab, that one, in the list of categories, click custom and then select one of the existing custom formats or clear the box to create your own. So, how to create your own? Here, so you have these as your reference. So using a K or yeah,
Wow.
1 to 3 K, then use this in your custom format. How to do that? Let's apply that. Now you go here, go to custom, and then in here you type this one. That's not a hashtag. I think that's a number, depending on how you want to say. But yeah, so right. If you see a code in here, meaning that's gonna be the actual value that will go into your cell. All right. So if anything that is inside a code, right? So if you'll do that, then it will give you this value. All right. Again, go how did we customize it? We went to here. Click that. Or you can also click your cell, right click, format cell, and here you have your that. Or also have this, more number formats. So multiple ways, but the basic is this. Clicking this. That's your custom format. Right. So that's one way of rounding your numbers. Next, your round function. So this is where we're doing formulas now. So there are so in round function, it can be used to round a number to a specific number of places from the decimal point. So for example, you can round a sales amount to the nearest cent, in this case here, and then round an age to the nearest decade in here. So what does that mean? So in the screenshot below, the sales tax is rounded to the nearest cent by using 2 as the number of decimal places to round. Meaning, in here, you are trying to round the result of B5 times B6. And then it will give you 2 decimal places. That's why you have that. In this one as well, you are trying to round it to the nearest decade. By decade meaning every 10 years. All right. So anyone that is age 12, this is 18, so that's 20, 32. All right. So what does round mean in your formula? Oops. So rounds to a specified number of digits. So in your cell attribute or in your formula attribute, you first need to look for a number. Number is your reference. So in this case, we'll have that as an example. And then comma, the number of digits that you like to see. Most of the time, it's 2. That will give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Wow.
If you don't want to see the 8, you can change this to 1. Right? So it rounded up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not 7, but 8 because it automatically rounds it. Okay, next. You have your round down and your round up function. So your round down rounds a number down to a specific number of places from the decimal point. So in our example here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.78, if we'll round down that here, so what does round down mean? Rounds a number down towards 0. If we'll round down that, or say let's put it to 1 here. Notice if you'll just round it, it will give you the correct result, right? Oops, sorry. Have 1. All right. So if you'll use round, that is your correct way of rounding it, right? So it should give you if you basic math. um, Instead of 78, it will give you an 8 because you're rounding it to the first decimal. Round down is rounding it down to your first decimal, in this case 7. Depending on how you'd want to use it, but there are times that you need to use round down. Probably you'd like to define it as, or you have your own definition or something, then you can round it down or round it up. All right. So here, this is your round up.
Wow.
All right. So that's your round up formula. Then again, if you'd like to play with what I have here and other rounding formulas, which I didn't include, which is floor, ceiling. Yes, there's floor and ceiling. You can download this file in my samples folder and play with it. Next, statistical functions. So what are these? So there are multiple formulas in Excel statistical functions. We're only going to be covering the basics. All right. So in this case, you have your what do you call this, average. Just give me a minute. All right, sorry about that. Um, so yeah, so average. Um, this formula will average cells that contain numbers. So its syntax is this one, meaning your formula is that one. So it will average in value everything that is in value 1, value 2, up to 30.
Wow.
All right. Or you can use a range of cell. In this example that we have here, we're trying to get the average of 50, 5.5, and 10. So if you'll have your formulas equals average A1 to A5, the average is 21.83. Where's my sample file? Okay, so this is your average. Equals average A1 to A5, then it will average that one's in there. So pretty much the same concept, the same idea as what you have in count. It's just that in this case, we're using average. We're trying to get the average. All right. So please note that dates are stored as numbers. So the average function will include any cells that contain dates. So be mindful of your data. Right. There's also average if. All right. So average if is like the same as your count if, but in this case, you are getting the average out of your logic. So in this case, you're trying to get the average of A1 to A10 that is equal to 10, and then B1 to B10. All right. So why that formula here? Because average if, right? So finds the average based on a logic. So average if, oops, sorry. It will first try to, I mean, your first, the first thing that you need to including your syntax, is your range. So which is this. So meaning you're going to set up your logic first. So highlight that. So from A2 to A10, what if I'm gonna try to look for a binder? Right? Gonna look for a binder. So next is your average range, meaning where are your numbers, or where are your, yeah, where's the value that you'd like to average. So in this case here, so the logic states that you'd like to get the average of B2 to B10 from A2 to A10 that is equal to binder. So meaning these, this one, and this one. All right. Let's see. Is it 9? If you can remember your taskbar here, we'll give you your average as well. Let's try that here. Yep. So there's count if, there's average if, and yeah, of course, there's sum if. Right. Next. And again, same as your count ifs, there's also average ifs. Your formula is this one. So pretty much the same as your count ifs. Next. So you have your min or minimum and max or maximum functions in Excel. So these two formulas enables you to find the lowest and the highest values in Excel. So to find the lowest value in a range, use the min function here. So in this in this example, we're trying to look for the lowest value from H2 to H7 here, 17 rather, here to here. What's the lowest value of that? So is it 10? So yep, we have 10 there. Yep, it is 10. Now you can also use max if you'd like to get the highest. So is it 92 really? So staplers is 92. Yep, that's the highest value in there. So you have your min and your max. Next, coffee break. Nah, not coffee break. It's just when you want to do a discussion in front of many people and you like to go into details and you you'd like to take a breather. But in this case, we don't have time for a coffee break. All right, so Excel charts basics. We're now gonna be talking about charts. So your Excel charts. All right. So, okay. So, Excel charts basic. So to create a chart in Excel, you need to first set up your data. So in our example, we have this data. If you'd like to play with this data, if you'd like to have a copy of the sample file, this one that I'm using, and again, it's still in the link in the description. Sorry, where were we? Charts, right? Okay, so in this case, right? So to have your in creating your chart, you need to first set up your data first. Before doing anything, set up your data. Right. What you do, select the range. Oops, I have that, but I would wanna achieve this look. So on the insert tab, in the charts group, so where is that? Insert charts. All right, here. But first, before going there, you need to select your data. In this case, that's range A1 to D7. A1 to D7, highlight that, and your data needs to look like this. All right. So insert tab, charts group, click the line symbol, this one, because we're trying to achieve line. So choose that, and then click line with markers depending on the look that you'd like to achieve. If you'd like it to have markers, most of the time in my case I don't prefer that. I normally use just a 2D line, but in this case we'll choose line with markers to be able to get this view. All right, how you're gonna do that: insert, under charts, click this, and then click line with markers. Is it the same view? Let me just remove my grid lines. All right. Is it? Is it? Is it? Yep, it is the same view. All right. Note, so if you'd like to enter a title in your chart, you can click on the chart title. This one. So if you click that, and then, yeah, click that, you can name it sample chart. All right. We'll go into the details of tweaking those view later. All right. Next, changing your chart type. So we have this, right? We have this one. All right. So changing your chart type. So what you do, you can easily change it. You go to select your chart. In this case, I'm selecting this. On the design tab, in the type group, where is that? Design tab here. Here under chart tools, design tab. Click that. And then look for chart type. Chart type here. Right. Click that. And then on the left side, click column. You have different chart types here, but in this case, in this example, we're gonna use column. And then you have your two different types of column chart. You have your clustered, and you have this. So whichever you'd like to use, depending on the view that you'd like to achieve, or depending on how you would want to present it. This example uses your month-on-month view. This example uses your animals view. All right. So we are trying to achieve this. Click that, hit OK, and then there. We have changed your view from line to this one. All right. You can switch your rows and your columns. In this case, switching this to your rows and your columns. So this is your rows. These are your columns. If you'd like to switch it, you can do that as well. Select your chart on the design tab in the data group. So where is that? Design tab, data group here. All right. Click switch row or column. All right. Doing that will switch your view from here, from your rows, which is month on month. You can switch it again to animals. Switch it. All right. So you can switch your row and your column. All right. Next. You also have a way to move your legend. Legend are these ones. Let's switch the view back. Okay. So there's also a way to move these legends depending on how you'd like it. So currently we have it here in the bottom part, right? We would like to move this on the right side to get this view. So how are you gonna do that? Click the plus button on the right side of the chart. Click the arrow next to the legend and click right. Okay. So click your chart. click the which one? Plus button. All right, so click that. And then in your legends, where is that? Here. There's an arrow. Click that. And then choose right or left or top or bottom, depending on how you'd like it. All right. Next, moving your legends. That's done. Adding data labels. Right. So what's the purpose of adding data labels? So you can use data labels to focus your reader's attention on a single data series or a data point. So select so meaning it will have numbers at the top of your columns if we're referring it to this instruction, or sorry, in this sample. um so what you do, select the chart, click the green bar because we're trying to get the label for those green, meaning the month of June, and hold down control. Use your arrow keys to select the population of dolphins in June, and then click the plus button, and then same thing. So click that, or this one. I'm not gonna follow what we have there, but instead I'm gonna show the data labels for all of the green. How are we gonna do that? Here, read the labels, then add that. So all your for greens now has numbers or their specific value, right? If you'd like to add labels for everything, here, just choose your entire chart. You can do that as well. All right, next. If you can remember, there are a lot of chart types when we went to design and chart type, right? In here. In the PDF file that I'll be sharing later, you'll have your links to my favorite Excel site. You can click on these and it will lead you to the samples, what its purpose are, how to do it, and all that. By clicking these ones, it will lead you to excel-ec.com and then examples. So on each of these ones. So and again, same thing as the previous weeks. I'm gonna be sharing this file. I'm gonna share the recording together with this pack. All right. Next, pivot tables. All right. Challenging. Just let me take a breath. Okay. Pivot tables. Where are we? So, pivot tables are one of Excel's most powerful features. All right. So, pivot table allows you to extract the significance from a large, detailed data set. So in this example, our data set consists of 213 records and 6 fields. Order ID, this column, product, category, amount, date, and your country. So this is the data that we'll be using in our pivot table discussion. Let's start with inserting a pivot table. How to do that? So to insert a pivot table, execute the following steps. Click any single cell inside the data set. Before that, very important, when doing pivot table, where's my, a minute. Okay. All right. So before that, you need to select your data set. Let me open my file. Pivot tables. So again, before I proceed, let me just drag this here. Okay. So in the file that I shared, in the description of this live of this video, you will see a link that will lead you to this I'm sorry, Google Drive that I have. Um, you can see pivot table file in there, and then you can use that as reference for our discussion. Okay. All right. So this is our data. We have 213 rows. All right. So this is our data. Now, um, what you do, click any single cell inside the data set. Data set. Everything that you're seeing here, this is your data set. I don't want to see grid lines. View, uncheck grid lines there. Much cleaner view. All right. So going back, click any single cell inside the dataset. On the Insert tab in the Tables group, click Pivot Table. So, oops. Okay. Click Insert under Tables. Click Pivot Table. All right. When you click that, Excel will automatically try to find um, all data that's related to B13 that you've clicked. So anywhere in the data set, if you click that, when you click pivot table, it will automatically try to find everything that is related to that data set, and will consider all of that as part of your data set. So um, there are different ways in selecting your data, but we're not going to be covering that today. Um, in this in this example, we'll only be using whatever is inside this workbook. All right. So choose where you want your pivot data table to be placed. You can either choose to, when you choose new worksheet, when you hit OK, another tab will show up here. If you use existing worksheet, that, and then you use and then you choose location, choose where you'd like your pivot to be. All right, hit enter. When you hit OK, your pivot will show up in this part. But we're not gonna do that. In this example, we will use a new worksheet. Right? Disregard add this data to the data model for now. We're not gonna cover that in this discussion because it's quite complicated. I mean, that's gonna be tackling Power Pivot. We're not gonna be covering that for now. If you have questions about Power Pivot, let me know, and I'm more than happy to assist, help you with Power Pivot. All right. So in this case, new worksheet. Hit OK. Your data is now in your new worksheet. This is named Sheet 2. I'll name it New. I'll remove my grid lines. All right. Let's go back to our um, presentation. All right. So when you hit OK, then you can see this. Now, next part is dragging fields. So dragging you're now gonna be playing with your data. So dragging fields. These these areas that you are seeing here. This is where you can drag your fields. Your fields are these. Your fields are pretty much your columns. All right. So going back to our data, this is one field, two, three, four, five, six. All right. So these are your fields. Now, you can drag your fields to the row, to the amount, to the values, and to the filter. In this example, we'll add product in the row, amount in the value, and then country in the filters, right? How will that look? It'll look like this. It will then give you your products, your amount, and your country. So where are these from? These fruits here. These are your products, right? It pretty much sums up your carrots, your apple, and then your amount here, right? Because your pivot is trying to get the value, sorry, the sum value of all these products, then that's why it looks like that, right? Now, so this is how it looks like. Although this one is count, but we'll tackle that later. But if you'll do it yourself, you have your country here, you have your product here, and then you have your amount here, right? Now, instead of amount, there are other ways to get the value. You have your average, you have your max, you have your min, you have your count, and you have your sum. All right. The most common is sum. You have your average, meaning the average amount, or yeah, the average data, the average value based on your field. In this case, the average amount of your um, products. If we choose average, then these are your average of your apple. All right. So if you go to your data here, if you filter this to apple,
Wow.
your average here, your average is this. See, this 4781, 4781, right? That's why your sum, not 191257. If you change this to sum, 191257. All right, filtering to just apples. So instead of you counting it manually using calculator, you can instead use pivot and get your results right away, right? Amazing. Okay, next, sorting your data. You can sort it depending on how you'd like it. In this case, we'll be sorting it from the highest or the largest to the smallest. Now, how are you going to do that? Click in any cell inside the sum amount, right click and click on sort, and then sort largest to smallest. All right, so right click and sort largest to smallest. All right, there's also another way of sorting that. Let me undo it. If you click on this one,
Wow.
the drop down, you have your sort A to Z. It will sort A to Z the rows, and then you can also choose sort options, and then descending, it's either your, if you are sorting your products descending, or sorting the amount descending. Let's see if it will give us the same result. Yep, it does. So you can do it that way, or you can also right click, sort largest to smallest. Either way. Next, filter the pivot data. So pretty straightforward. You can filter your pivot data in what you have here. Let's see, you would only, so of all the countries that you have, of all these countries, you would want to see only results for Australia, New Zealand, France. All right, this is our example. Next, changing the summary calculation. So we've covered this one. Sorry. All right. So we've covered this one earlier. So you can change the result of your value. And again, as I've mentioned, you can change the result to count instead of sum. And again, how to do that? Click that value field setting, and then sum. So you can do sum. You can do count. Count means counting how many um, right, counting how many rows in your, or how many data that you have there in your data set is apple, is carrots, and all that. Now, um, this is something that is not in the that's not in the website, but something that I'd like to share with you. Um, you can use show value as um, for a different view that you'd like. Although I think I'll have it in my next discussion. But you can use show value as, if you can remember here, not that one here. Um, Instead of just summarizing the value or counting, yep. Instead of summarizing the field value, you can also show value as and then say percent of grand total or percent of the column total. What this one will do, let's see, all right? So it will give you the percentage of per product. So of your data in here, right? It will give you the how many percent is apple, how many percent is banana, and all that. So you can do show value as. So by changing the summary calculation. Next, two-dimensional pivot table. All right. So if you drag a field to the rows areas and columns areas, you can create a two-dimensional table, meaning this one, something like looks like this. So what that means is that on your columns, you have your products. On your rows in here, you have your countries, and then still the sum of your amount. So doing that will help you what I call this get the sum per product per country right away without filtering it. Because remember earlier, you can choose the drop down and then filter it per country, right? But instead of doing that to easily get your numbers, you can do a two-dimensional view and then easily identify your values. Say for example, for Germany, if you'd like to see the sum of your let's name it units sold for Germany. Um, yeah, amount sold rather for Germany. For mango, you have your that's 8,775. Right. So that's doing a two-dimensional pivot. So again, you can also compare these numbers easily by creating a chart out of it. We've already talked about chart, but there's also another way of creating a chart for your pivot data. We'll cover that later. Right. So it's things to note. It's perfectly okay to drag more than one field to an area in a pivot table. For example, multiple row fields, multiple value fields, or multiple report fields. So how does that look like here? So first one, multi-level pivot table for multiple row fields. So in this case, let's go back before we tackle that. Let's go back to our data set. Notice that our data set has a category, has a product, and has a country, right? So in this example, we have if we'll do multiple rows for your data, you have here, if you'll drag your category in your rows, your sum in your value, then you add country in your row, then you have this look. So it's okay to have multiple rows in one table. It's also okay to add multiple values. All right. So in this case, for example, all right. So in this case, for example, we're gonna add two amounts. All right. Here, two amounts in your values. Now it will then look like this. What's the purpose of that? Why are we doing that? if you'll change, if you can remember, we've talked about changing the value field setting, right? If you'll change the second value to a percentage, it will then give you this look. This case, for example, um, we are trying to get your total amount per country and your percentage of sales for that country. So doing this will easily give you, ah, most of my sales comes from US. Next to that, UK, and then Germany, and then France, right? So it will make your life easier if you'd like to have that view. And then you can, with that in place, you now have your amount and your percentage and present it easily to your stakeholders. Next, multiple report fields. So it's also okay to do multiple report fields, meaning multiple filters. So if you'd like to be very specific with your data, what we have here is this view, meaning you'd like to filter your data to only be the ones coming from UK, specific to broccoli only. So these are your what do you call this, sales out of your, out of doing this, out of your data. So you can also do multiple filter. Next, very important, any changes you make to the data set are not automatically picked up by the pivot table. Refresh the pivot table or change the data source to update the pivot table with applied changes. So always refresh before presenting your data or before playing with your data. So how are you going to do that? On your pivot table, let's say, let's change this to sum. Sum, and then this one, no calculation. Okay. All right. So, notice that you have 191,257 total amount for your Apple. What if I'll change Apple amount? Assuming your, say, your sales representative made an error, and supposedly instead of 7,000, your sale here is 10,000. All right. Now, this should not supposed to be just 191, but because it's now 10,000, you need to refresh this by doing right click, refresh. Doing that will what I call this, change your numbers in here as well. So you need to make sure when you play with your data, always refresh it. Before you make any presentation, always refresh your data. Now, changing your data source. So what is this one for? What if you have added additional data here? I'm gonna name it item 214. I have pineapple here. Okay, I don't. All right. So let's add pineapple. It's is pineapple a fruit or a vegetable? All right. And then it says 10,000. Okay. And then it was made same date. And it was sold in Philippines. All right. If you can see here, you don't have any country that's Philippines. You don't see any pineapple. When you refresh that, you've already added your data, right? Notice that you still don't see a pineapple here. You still don't see Philippines here, even if you have already refreshed it a million times, right? That is because your data source is only up to here, going up. Now, very important, when you add a new data, always change your data source, expand it, How are you going to do that? So click on any cell inside your pivot table. On the Analyze tab in the data group, click Change Data Source. All right, so click here, Analyze tab, click that, Change Data Source. Where is that? Here, and then here. So notice that it's only looking for data from A1 to A214. I'm sorry, F214, but Philippines is in 215. So you need to expand that. You can change that to 215 or click that, delete that, highlight it, going to F215, hit enter, and you're done. You now have pineapple, you now have Philippines as well. All right. So, very important, or just a tip, if you'd like your data to automatically update when you expand it, you can change your data to a table so that you don't have to be expanding it and changing your data source, but you can just go right away, right click and refresh. So how are you going to do that? If you can remember in our Excel basics, highlight everything, format as table. When you add a new one in here, 215 pineapple. All right. So guava. Okay. All right, and then say 11,000. And then so Philippines. Notice that it auto expands. So when you right click that, hit refresh, it also automatically expands. So that's just a tip if you'd like to, if you don't want to worry about when adding a new cell or when adding a new data, make sure to convert it to table. And you can just go ahead and right click and refresh right away. Next, inserting slicers. So what is this one for? So to insert a slicer, but yeah, sorry. What is that one for? So you can insert slicers to quickly and easily filter pivot tables. So instead of this filter here, you can insert a slicer, and then it should give you the same exact result as filtering it. So how are you going to do that? Click on insert, and then go to analyze. In the filter group, insert, sorry, not insert, but go to analyze, filter group, insert slicer, and then check category and click OK. And then choose the category. So in this case, assuming we don't have country in there, go to analyze, insert slicer, say we'd like to filter it to month, hit OK. You now have this. This is your slicer. If you'd like to view data only from Philippines, and click that. From France, from Australia, United States. All right. So pretty much the same as your filter, but um it's it looks cleaner. Plus, you get to play with the data easier. Right. If you'd like to remove whatever options you have here, if you'd like to do multiple filter, then hold control, click, click, click there. If you'd like to remove those filters, just click that, clear filter, and it will show up everything. Next, you have your pivot charts, right? So this is pretty much the same as your charts. The difference is instead of going to insert and then create your chart here, instead of going to insert and create your chart, you can go ahead and create your chart right away from pivot. So how are you going to do that? In analyze tab, there's a pivot chart in there. Insert that, hit OK, and you'll see your view. So we'll have this as our example. Analyze pivot chart. Um, yeah, let's have this one, clustered column, for example. Okay, so this is your data. When you have a pivot chart, and again, this one is linked to this. When you play with your filter, your chart changes as well. All right.
Wow.
So when you make presentations, instead of doing insert and then chart, so instead of like highlighting this insert and then chart, it's best to convert your data to a pivot and then create your pivot chart out of your pivot file. I'm sorry, a pivot table. And then you'll have this. Now it's easier for you to do presentations by playing with your slicer and your pivot table. And the same thing, of course, you can add your title here and add data labels. Move your legend to the right, left. You can do that as well. Pretty much you can do everything as what you have here. And then you can also change your chart type in here. In design, change chart type. So yeah, that's it for pivot charts. And if you're already familiar with the different chart types, then you can play with the different charts that you like. And that's it for this week's session. Thank you guys. So yeah, um, huge thanks to these sources that I have. But if you'd like to learn more about Excel, you can go to these websites. Um, and again, I'll be sharing this back to you guys. I'll be sharing the sample files as well, so you can play with it and then follow along with the pack with the instructions in here. You have all that in place. If you have questions, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to guide you, assist you, help you with any of your Excel files, and
Wow.
that's it for me. Thank you, and you have a good one. Take care, everyone.